Wealthy people have a habit of learning, growing, and improving. They don't wait for success to come. They prepare for it. So today I want to share with you the habits that transformed my life. Habits that separate the wealthy from the struggling, the successful from the average. If you master these, you won't have to chase success. Success will come knocking at your door. Number one on the list is self-reliance. Take full responsibility for your life. Self-reliance is one of the greatest powers a person can develop. It's the foundation of wealth, success, and the kind of life most people only dream of. Because here's the truth. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is going to build your fortune for you. If you want to be successful, if you want to be wealthy, you have to take full responsibility for your life. You have to say, if it is to be, it's up to me. That's the mindset of the successful. I remember when I was just starting out, struggling, trying to figure out how to make a living, I had all kinds of excuses. The government, my boss, the economy, everything and everyone but me was responsible for my situation. Then one day I got a piece of advice that changed my life. Someone said, the moment you accept full responsibility for where you are is the moment you gain the power to change it. And that was it. That was a shift. I realized that as long as I was blaming others, I was giving away my power. But the moment I said, this is on me, suddenly I had control. The wealthy and successful understand this at the deepest level. They don't wait for circumstances to be perfect. They don't expect handouts. They don't sit around hoping that someone will come along and change their lives. No, they take action. They take responsibility. They develop skills. They work harder on themselves than they do on their jobs. That's how they build fortunes. I once knew a man who had the habit of waiting. He was always waiting for the economy to improve, waiting for his company to recognize him, waiting for some miracle to come along and fix his problems. But here's what I learned. Waiting doesn't pay well. Waiting won't pay your bills, won't build your dream home, won't fund your retirement. The ones who succeed are the ones who say, no more waiting. I take charge now. Self-reliance means becoming the kind of person who can create wealth, not just wish for it. It means developing the skills that will make you valuable in the marketplace. It means understanding that your income is directly related to the value you bring to the world. You don't get paid for time. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. So the question is, how valuable are you? If you want to earn more, become more. If you want to achieve more, develop more skills. One of the best examples of self-reliance is the story of an ambitious young man who wanted to be financially independent. He didn't have much to start with, but he understood one thing. He had to become valuable. So he dedicated himself to learning. He read books, he found mentors, he worked harder on himself than he did on his job. He didn't complain about his circumstances. He changed them. And eventually he became so valuable in the marketplace that money was no longer an issue. People were willing to pay him well because he had developed skills that were in demand. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that success is about luck or timing or connections. But the truth is, it's about personal growth. The successful don't wish things were easier. They wish they were better. They don't complain about the system. They find ways to make the system work for them. They don't blame their upbringing or their past mistakes. They learn from them and move forward. I once heard a young man say, I wasn't born into money, so I'll never be rich. That kind of thinking is the enemy of self-reliance. Where you start doesn't determine where you end up. It's not about what you're given. It's about what you do with what you have. Some of the wealthiest people in the world started with nothing. They didn't wait for someone to give them a break. They created their own opportunities. So here's the question. Are you taking full responsibility for your life? Are you making excuses or are you making progress? Are you waiting for the economy to improve or are you improving yourself so you can thrive in any economy? The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. Successful people don't wait. they act. When you become self-reliant, everything changes. You no longer live at the mercy of circumstances. You no longer depend on others for your success. You take control. And that's where real wealth begins. There's a principle that separates the truly successful from the rest, and it's one of the greatest secrets to wealth. Always do more than you are paid for. Most people work only for what they're getting right now, and that's why they stay where they are. They do just enough to keep from getting fired, and the company pays them just enough to keep them from quitting. It's a cycle of mediocrity. But the ones who rise, the ones who achieve extraordinary success, operate differently. They understand that going the extra mile isn't just about impressing the boss, it's about developing the kind of character and work ethic that creates wealth. I remember working for a company where my paycheck was just barely covering my bills. I was doing what was required, showing up on time, doing the work, and going home. And guess what? I stayed broke. But then I learned something that changed my entire perspective. If you want to be paid more, you have to become more valuable. So I started staying late, learning extra skills, taking on projects no one else wanted. No one told me to do it. No one was paying me extra, but I did it anyway. And then something interesting happened. Opportunities started appearing. I got promoted, I got raises, and eventually I developed the kind of skills that allowed me to step out and build my own wealth. That's the lesson. Money follows value. If you increase your value, the marketplace will reward you. Most people say if they paid me more, I'd work harder, but that's backward thinking. You don't get the promotion first and then work harder. You work harder first, and then the promotion comes. The wealthy understand this. They don't just work for what they're getting today, they work for what they're becoming. They push themselves beyond what's required because they know that extraordinary effort leads to extraordinary rewards. Look at the most successful people in any field. The top athletes don't just practice when the coach is watching. The best salespeople don't just make the calls they're required to make. They go beyond. The wealthiest entrepreneurs don't just deliver what's expected. They exceed expectations. That's why they win. I once met a young man who wanted to get ahead in his job. He asked for advice, and I told him, start doing more than you're paid for. Arrive early, stay late, take on extra responsibility. A few months later, he came back frustrated. I've been doing all that, he said, but they still haven't given me a raise. I told him, keep going. The results aren't always immediate, but they're inevitable. He stuck with it. And not long after, an executive in another department noticed his work ethic and offered him a position with double the pay. That's how it works. When you perform at an extraordinary level, the world takes notice. Maybe not right away, but in time, the rewards come. But here's the key. You have to do it for yourself, not just for the rewards. You have to develop the habit of excellence because that's who you are, not just because of what you get. The habit of doing more, being more, contributing more. That's what builds the mindset of success. And once you have that, wealth becomes a natural byproduct. Now, there's something else that determines your success, and it's just as important as how hard you work. It's who you spend your time with. If you want to be successful, you have to walk away from the 97%. That's the group that makes excuses, the group that settles for average, the group that never rises above their circumstances. And if you stay around them too long, their mindset will become yours. I learned this the hard way. Early on, I was spending time with people who had no ambition. They complained about their jobs, about the economy, about how unfair life was. And without realizing it, I started thinking the same way. But then I made a change. I started seeking out people who were doing better than me, people who were successful, people who had ambition, people who talked about ideas instead of problems, and that changed everything. You've probably heard it said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're around complainers, guess what? You'll become a complainer. If you're around people who never take responsibility, you'll start making excuses too. But if you surround yourself with winners, their habits, their mindset, their drive will rub off on you. I knew a man who was struggling financially, barely making ends meet. Then one day he got an opportunity to work with a group of highly successful people. He started spending time with them, listening to how they thought, watching how they operated. Within a few years, he had completely turned his financial life around. Not because he suddenly became lucky, but because he changed his influences. This is one of the hardest lessons, because sometimes it means letting go of old friendships, distancing yourself from negative influences, and stepping into a new environment. But the truth is, you can't afford to stay in the wrong crowd. If your friends aren't pushing you to be better, to work harder, to dream bigger, then you need new friends. Success isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become. And who you become is shaped by who you spend time with and the effort you put in. If you make the decision today to always do more than you're paid for and to surround yourself with the right people, there's no limit to how far you can go. There's a reason some people build wealth that lasts for generations while others lose it almost as quickly as they gain it. It's not just about how much money they make. It's about the foundation on which they build. Wealth built on principles lasts. It stands strong through economic downturns, through challenges, through time itself. But wealth built on shortcuts, dishonesty, or luck, that kind of wealth is like a house of cards. One gust of wind, and it all comes crashing down. Character is the foundation. Success that isn't rooted in integrity never lasts. You can fool people for a while, you can cut corners and get ahead temporarily, but eventually it catches up. That's why the truly successful don't just focus on making money, they focus on becoming the kind of person who deserves success. They understand that wealth isn't just about having more, it's about who you become in the process. I once knew a man who built a thriving business. He was making more money than he had ever dreamed of. But he took shortcuts. He cut ethical corners. He made deals that weren't entirely honest, and for a while it worked. He lived in a big house, drove a fancy car, had everything money could buy. But then the cracks started showing. Customers lost trust. Partners walked away. Eventually, the entire business collapsed. He had built his success on sand, and when the storm came, it washed everything away. Contrast that with another man I knew, same industry, same opportunity, but this man refused to compromise his principles. He treated every customer like they were his most important. He honored his commitments even when it was inconvenient. He did what was right, not what was easy. And while his success wasn't as flashy in the beginning, over time, he built something unshakable. His business grew year after year, and decades later, it's still thriving. That's the power of integrity. It creates success that lasts. People sometimes think integrity is about grand moral decisions, but it starts with the small things. Do you keep your word even when no one is watching? Do you do your best work even when it would be easy to cut corners? Do you treat people with honesty and fairness even when it's not required? These little decisions determine your character, and your character determines your destiny. Now, there's another principle that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who struggle, and that's long-term thinking. The truly wealthy don't play for the short-term win, they play the infinite game. They don't just think about today, this month, or even this year. They think in decades, in lifetimes, in generations. Most people are focused on immediate gratification. They want results now, they want success now, and that's why they fall into traps, get-rich-quick schemes, chasing trends, making decisions based on what feels good in the moment instead of what's wise in the long run. But wealth isn't built in a day. It's built over time through consistent effort, discipline, and patience. I remember early in my career, I had the opportunity to make a quick buck. A deal came my way that promised fast returns, no real effort, just an easy payout. And it was tempting, but something didn't feel right. I turned it down. Sure enough, a few months later, the entire thing fell apart, and the people who had jumped in lost everything. That experience taught me an important lesson. If it sounds too good to be true, real success takes time. The best investors don't put their money where they'll see the biggest return in a month. They invest in things that will grow over years, even decades. The best entrepreneurs don't start businesses for a quick profit. They build something that will last. The best professionals don't chase the highest paycheck today. They develop skills that will make them valuable for a lifetime. Look at how the wealthy operate. They don't spend everything they make, they reinvest it. They don't make impulsive decisions, they think strategically. They don't get discouraged when things don't go their way in the short term because they understand they're playing a bigger game. Think about the difference between a sprinter and a marathon runner. The sprinter burns all their energy in the first few seconds, and when the race is over, they're done. The marathon runner, on the other hand, paces themselves. They plan for the long haul. They know that success isn't about how fast you start. It's about whether you have the endurance to finish strong. I once met a man who told me his financial goal was to retire rich in 5 years. He wanted a shortcut. He wanted to take the fast track. I asked him, what if, instead of 5 years, you focused on building wealth over the next 20? What if, instead of trying to get rich quick, you got rich for sure? He didn't like that answer. He wanted it now. But the truth is, the people who succeed are the ones who are willing to delay gratification, to put in the work today for a better tomorrow. If you plant a tree today, you don't get shade tomorrow. But in 10 years, 20 years, that tree grows into something strong, something that provides shelter, something that lasts. Wealth works the same way. It's not about what you can get today. It's about what you're building for the future. The question is, are you thinking short-term or long-term? Are you focused on quick wins, or are you committed to lasting success? Because those who play the infinite game, those who focus on integrity, on character, on principles, on thinking ahead, they're the ones who win, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. There's a common misunderstanding about success. Some people think it's reserved for the lucky, the talented, or the well-connected. But success isn't a secret. It's a system. And at the heart of that system is one simple truth. Success requires massive action. Not just a little effort, not just showing up, not just doing what's expected. It demands relentless work, the kind that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Most people underestimate what it takes. They set a goal, they work at it for a while, and then they wonder why nothing is happening. But success doesn't come to those who dabble. It comes to those who commit, who push, who refuse to settle. It's about developing a work ethic so strong that you become impossible to ignore. I once met a young man who told me he wanted to build wealth. He had big dreams, financial freedom, a great lifestyle, security for his family. I asked him, "What are you doing to make it happen?" He said, "I put in a good effort every day." But when I dug deeper, his good effort was a couple of hours here and there, showing up when he felt motivated, putting in work when it was convenient. I had to tell him the hard truth. Success isn't convenient. It doesn't work on your schedule. If you want extraordinary results, you have to put in extraordinary effort. Look at the most successful people in any field, business, sports, the arts. They all have one thing in common. They work relentlessly. Michael Jordan didn't just rely on talent. He practiced longer, harder, and with more intensity than anyone else. Steve Jobs didn't just have great ideas. He obsessed over every detail, working day and night to bring his vision to life. The people who make it to the top are the ones who push beyond what's required, beyond what's expected, beyond what's comfortable. And here's something to remember. Massive action doesn't just mean working hard. It means working smart. Some people put in effort, but it's the wrong kind. They keep busy, but they don't move forward. They mistake activity for progress. But true effort is intentional, focused, and results-driven. It means doing the things that matter, the things that create real momentum. Now let's talk about what happens when you reach success. Because success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about what you pass on. Those who truly build wealth, who create lasting impact, understand a simple principle. Success is about duplication. It's not just about doing. It's about teaching. Think about it. If success was just about what one person could accomplish alone, it would be limited. But when you teach, when you mentor, when you duplicate what you know in others, your impact multiplies, your knowledge grows, your influence expands. And in business, that's the key to real wealth. The great companies, the great leaders, the great entrepreneurs, they don't just work, they build teams. They create systems. They train others to take what they've learned and carry it forward. That's why the most successful people invest in mentorship, in leadership, in helping others rise. Because when you help others grow, you grow. When you help others succeed, there's a reason why wealthy people don't just accumulate money. They share wisdom. They write books. They mentor. They create organizations that last beyond their lifetime. That's how true wealth is built, not just in dollars, but in knowledge, in relationships, in legacy. So here's the real challenge. Don't just work hard, work relentlessly. Don't just achieve, duplicate. Because when you take massive action and when you pass on what you've learned, success isn't just something you have, it's something you build, something you expand, something that lasts. We become what we think about most of the time. The mind is like a magnet. It attracts what it focuses on. If you dwell on obstacles, you will find more of them. If you focus on solutions, opportunities will reveal themselves. Control your mind, and you control the direction of your life. Most people don't realize that their destiny is shaped not by fate, but by the thoughts they allow to take root. Every belief, every doubt, every fear, these are the architects of your future. If you let negativity and mediocrity invade your mind, don't be surprised when they build a home in your life. But if you guard your thoughts, discipline your thinking, and plant the seeds of success, your future will take a different shape, one of prosperity, growth, and fulfillment. Your philosophy determines your future, the way you think, the principles you live by, the mindset you adopt. This is what determines where you will go in life. Some people believe they are victims of circumstance and so they remain stuck. Others believe they have the power to shape their own future and so they rise. The difference is not in their background, but in their thinking. A shift in philosophy is the first step to changing your destiny. Your mind is like a factory, constantly producing thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that shape your life. And just like a factory, the quality of what comes out depends entirely on what you put in. If you feed it negativity, doubt, and fear, don't be surprised when your life reflects those very things. But if you fill it with wisdom, discipline, and vision, your future begins to look very different. The mind doesn't discriminate, it simply processes whatever raw materials you give it. That's why it's crucial to guard what you allow into your thinking. Imagine two factories side by side. One is run with care, selecting only the finest materials, ensuring efficiency, and producing high-quality products that people want. The other is disorganized, allowing in poor materials, taking no responsibility for the output, and constantly struggling with defective products. The same is true for the mind. One person carefully guards what they think about, disciplines their focus, and fills their mind with ideas that lead to success. Another lets in every negative influence, dwells on problems instead of solutions, and wonders why their life is filled with struggle. The difference isn't in circumstances. It's in the way they manage the production of thoughts. I remember a time when I was young and struggling financially. I found myself constantly thinking about how hard life was, how unfair circumstances seemed, and how much I lacked. And sure enough, my reality reflected those very thoughts. But then, I was introduced to a different way of thinking. I started listening to new ideas, reading books on success, and surrounding myself with people who thought differently. And slowly my mental factory started producing different results. Instead of lack, I began to think about opportunity. Instead of excuses, I started focusing on solutions. And that shift in thinking changed everything. Most people don't realize how much influence they allow into their minds. They listen to negative news all day, engage in conversations filled with doubt, and constantly expose themselves to information that weakens their confidence. And then they wonder why they feel stuck. It's like feeding your body junk food every day and expecting to be in peak physical shape. It simply doesn't work. If you want a different life, you have to be intentional about what you allow into your mind. Start by auditing what you consume. What books are you reading? What conversations are you engaging in? Who are you listening to? Because every idea, every belief, and every thought that enters your mind is either building you up or tearing you down. Choose wisely. The mind is a powerful tool, but only if you take control of what it's being fed. Because in the end, your life is simply a reflection of the thoughts you produce. Guard your mind like you would guard a treasure, because that's exactly what it is. Life is full of challenges, setbacks, and unexpected turns. But here's what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. It's not what happens that determines your future. It's how you respond. Two people can go through the exact same hardship, yet one comes out stronger while the other remains defeated. The difference is mindset. Because circumstances may shape your experiences, but your response shapes your destiny. I once met two men who had faced the same obstacle. Both had lost their jobs unexpectedly. One saw it as a disaster. He complained, blamed the economy, and spent months dwelling on how unfair life was. The other saw it as an opportunity. He took it as a sign to start his own business, to build something for himself. The first man remained stuck, while the second built a future beyond what he ever imagined. The lesson? Life will always present challenges, but what matters is whether you see them as stumbling blocks or stepping stones. The truth is, external circumstances are never fully in our control. The economy shifts, people make decisions that affect us, unexpected events happen. But what we can control, what we must control, is our attitude toward those events. Some people allow setbacks to define them, while others use them as fuel to grow. The same storm that destroys one house strengthens the foundation of another. It all depends on how well it was built. And the strongest foundation in life is mindset. Years ago, I found myself facing financial difficulties. I could have blamed my circumstances, my background, or even the people around me. But I realized that none of those things would change my future. What would change it was the decision to take responsibility for how I responded. Instead of letting the struggle break me, I let it teach me. I started studying success, developing new habits, and making better decisions. And over time, things turned around, not because life suddenly became easier, but because I became stronger. Think of a farmer. If the season is dry, he doesn't sit back and complain. He finds a way to irrigate. If storms come, he prepares for the next planting season. He understands that he can't control the weather, but he can control his response to it. Life is the same way. The people who win aren't the ones with perfect conditions. They are the ones who refuse to let conditions dictate their future. So the next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, will I let this break me, or will I use it to make me better? Because your mindset, not your circumstances, is what determines your success. And if you take control of how you respond, there is no obstacle that can keep you from the future you want. Emotions can either be the driving force behind success or the reason for failure. The key is not to suppress them, but to master them. Those who let their emotions dictate their decisions are like a ship without a captain, tossed in every direction by the waves. But those who discipline their minds, who take control of their emotions, instead of letting emotions take control of them, become the architects of their own destiny. Think about it. How many times have people ruined opportunities because they reacted in anger? How many times has fear stopped someone from taking a chance that could have changed their life? How many times has discouragement made someone quit right before they were about to succeed? The undisciplined mind is like a wild horse, unpredictable, dangerous, and difficult to control. But when trained, that same horse can carry you to unimaginable heights. I remember a time early in my journey when things weren't going well. I was frustrated, discouraged, and tempted to quit. The little voice in my head kept saying, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe success is for other people, not you. But then I learned one of the greatest lessons. Never make decisions in a negative emotional state. Never let temporary feelings dictate permanent outcomes. Instead of quitting, I decided to discipline my mind. I changed my focus, started learning from people who had walked the path before me, and reminded myself why I started in the first place. Over time, things turned around. Not because my circumstances changed first, but because my mindset did. Successful people don't let emotions control them. They control their emotions. When they feel fear, they move forward anyway. When they feel doubt, they replace it with faith. When anger arises, they take a step back and respond with wisdom instead of reacting impulsively. It's not that they don't feel these emotions. They simply refuse to let them take the driver's seat. Imagine a businessman who loses a major deal. He has two choices. He can let frustration and disappointment consume him, or he can see it as a lesson and move forward even stronger. One choice leads to regret, the other to growth. Or picture an athlete who trains for years and faces a loss. Some allow failure to defeat them, while others use it as fuel to train harder, to become better, and to rise to the next level. The difference isn't talent, it's mindset. So here's the challenge. Discipline your mind. When fear speaks, answer it with action. When discouragement whispers, drown it out with belief. When anger flares up, pause and choose wisdom over reaction. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life. And when you master your life, there is no limit to what you can achieve. The mind is like a muscle. Neglect it, and it weakens. Challenge it, and it grows. The problem is most people let their minds sit idle, feeding on whatever comes their way, instead of deliberately strengthening it every single day. Growth isn't automatic. Just like the body needs exercise to stay strong, the mind requires learning and discipline to expand. Think about this. If a person stops using their muscles, what happens? They shrink. They lose strength. They become weak. The same is true for the mind. A stagnant mind leads to a stagnant life. But those who commit to learning and growing every day develop mental strength that allows them to take on any challenge, solve any problem, and seize any opportunity. Many years ago, I made a decision that changed my life. I became a student, not just in school, but in life. I realized that if I wanted to have more, I had to become more. If I wanted success, I had to grow into the person capable of achieving it. So I started reading books, listening to great teachers, studying success principles, and applying them daily. Slowly, my thinking changed. My perspective shifted. My confidence grew. And as a result, my life transformed. Look at the most successful people in the world. Leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators. They are lifelong learners. They read, they study, they ask questions, they seek wisdom. They don't assume they know it all. They understand that growth never stops. Whether it's a business tycoon absorbing financial strategies, an athlete refining their techniques, or a musician practicing tirelessly, the principle is the same. Continuous improvement is the foundation of lasting success. The key is consistency. A person who lifts weights for one day won't see any change, but the one who does it every day will become strong over time. The same goes for learning. One book won't change your life, but reading consistently will change the way you think. One lesson won't make you a master, but daily practice will sharpen your skills. Growth isn't about sudden breakthroughs, it's about steady progress. The mind must be fed wisely. Just like you wouldn't put junk fuel in a high-performance car, don't fill your mind with negativity, gossip, and useless distractions. Instead, feed it ideas that inspire, knowledge that builds, and wisdom that strengthens. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to think bigger. Expose yourself to environments that force you to grow, and invest in learning that expands your possibilities. The choice is simple: grow or stay the same. Strengthen your mind, and you strengthen your future. Because the person you become determines the success you achieve. Fear and doubt. Two thieves that steal more dreams than failure ever could. Not because they are real, but because we allow them to be. Fear has a way of whispering in your ear, telling you that you're not ready, that you're not good enough, that you'll fail if you try. Doubt follows right behind, nodding in agreement, convincing you to wait, to hesitate, to hold back just a little longer. And before you know it, another year has passed, another opportunity has slipped away, and you're still standing in the same place. But here's the truth. Fear is only as powerful as the permission you give it. It exists in the mind, nowhere else. The moment you take action in spite of fear, it loses its grip on you. The greatest achievers in history were not fearless. They simply refused to let fear control them. They felt it, but they moved forward anyway. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall, they stumble, they get back up and try again. They don't stop to analyze the risk or question whether they're capable. They just keep going until one day they're running. But somewhere along the way, adults start overthinking. They start making excuses. They let fear creep in and keep them from stepping forward. Years ago, I had to learn this lesson myself. I was just getting started, filled with big dreams, but weighed down by self-doubt. What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm not cut out for success? But then I realized, what if I never try? What if I spend my life wondering what could have been? That thought was even scarier. So I made a decision. I would take action, no matter how I felt. And slowly, step by step, fear lost its hold on me. That's the key, taking action. Fear thrives on inaction. The longer you wait, the stronger it gets. But the moment you move, even in the smallest way, you weaken its grip. The first speech you give might make your hands shake, but the 10th will feel natural. The first business deal might make you nervous, but the 100th will come with confidence. Growth happens in motion, not in hesitation. Doubt, too, is a liar. It tells you that you lack the talent, the intelligence, the ability. But doubt doesn't know what you're capable of. You do. And the only way to silence doubt is to prove it wrong. With every step forward, with every lesson learned, with every small victory, doubt fades. The choice is clear. Either fear and doubt run your life, or you do. Success belongs to those who are willing to step forward, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain, because on the other side of fear is everything you've ever wanted. Everything that exists in the world today was once a thought, an idea, a vision in someone's mind. The great buildings, the thriving businesses, the incredible achievements, all of them started with someone seeing it in their mind first, before it became a reality. That's how success begins. If you can't see it for yourself, if you can't picture the life you want, how can you ever expect to create it? A farmer doesn't just throw seeds into the dirt and hope for the best. No, he knows exactly what he's planting. If he wants corn, he plants corn. If he wants wheat, he plants wheat. He doesn't stand around hoping something good will grow by accident. Success works the same way. You have to be intentional. You have to see what you want before you can build it. But some people never take the time to visualize their future. They wake up, go through the motions, and wonder why nothing changes. They say, I'll see what happens, instead of deciding what happens. That's not how wealth is built. That's not how success is achieved. The most successful people don't wait for life to hand them opportunities. They create them. And it starts with a vision so clear that it pulls them forward. Years ago, I was just getting started and I learned a powerful lesson. If you want to change your life, you have to change your picture of the future. I sat down and wrote out exactly what I wanted, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to achieve, the kind of person I wanted to become. And I didn't just write it, I saw it. I imagined it so clearly that it felt real, and that picture drove me forward. See, the mind is powerful. When you give it a clear target, it starts working to make it happen. That's why goal setting is so critical. A goal isn't just a wish, it's a direction. It tells your mind where to focus, where to apply effort. Without goals, you drift. And drifting leads nowhere. Successful people don't just set goals. They write them down. They review them daily. They speak about them as if they're already real. And with every step they take, that vision becomes more tangible. Some people say, I don't know if I can do it. That's the wrong way to think. Instead, say, what do I need to do to make it happen? That one shift changes everything. So take time to visualize the life you want. See it clearly, feel it, write it down, and set goals that bring it closer. Because once you see it in your mind, the only thing left to do is go out and create it. You can have the most powerful mind in the world, the clearest vision, the sharpest plans, but without action, it all remains just a dream. Thinking about success is one thing, but doing what it takes to achieve it is another. The bridge between the life you have and the life you want is built with action. Massive, consistent action. Some people spend their days planning, preparing, getting ready to get ready, but they never take the first step. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, the perfect feeling. But let me tell you, perfection never comes. If you wait for everything to be just right, you'll wait forever. Success belongs to those who act, even before they feel ready. Think of the great achievers. They didn't wait. They started where they were with what they had and figured out the rest along the way. A young man once asked, "What's the secret to success?" The answer was simple. Get moving. Do something, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Start, because action creates momentum, and momentum creates results. I remember when I first started out, I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know exactly how I was going to achieve my goals, but I knew one thing: I had to get to work. I had to make that first call, knock on that first door, take that first step. And as I took action, the path became clearer. Opportunities started appearing, but only because I was in motion. Some people think their problem is lack of knowledge, but more often, it's lack of action. They read books, attend seminars, take notes, but never apply what they learn. Knowledge is potential power, but applied knowledge is real power. You don't have to know everything before you start. You just have to start. Now, taking massive action doesn't mean running in every direction without purpose. It means being strategic. It means identifying what will move you forward the fastest and doing more of that. If you're in business, it means making more calls, meeting more people, improving your skills. If you're building wealth, it means increasing your value, learning how money works, making better financial decisions. Excuses will always be there. Too tired, too busy, too risky. But so will the opportunities. The question is, which one will you listen to? Every day that passes is another chance to take action. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. One took action, the other waited. So, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Get started. Do the work. Take massive action. Because the mind is powerful, but action makes it real.